and welcome to this episode of the Popcorn Wind Down. I'm Eddie.
And I'm Tammy.
Thank you for joining us this week as we will be discussing Selena the Series Part 2. To hear our thoughts on the first part of the series, check out Season 2, Episode 3. Tammy, what did you think about Part 2?
I liked it. It was good. It pissed me off a lot because I realized that I didn't like any of her family. Except for her husband. I thought Chris, turned out to be really look really good in the series, but her family, yeah, they could kick rocks.
What didn't you like about her family?
Her father was I feel her family was very selfish and guilt trippy and I don't know. Like, I just did not warm up to AB or Suzette or Abraham, her dad, and not even her mom, because I felt like her mom just sat back and just let it be, and never really spoke up or, stepped up at all. She had no opinion whatsoever, like none whatsoever. And I'm not a person to really, I don't welcome those types of characters because those are just weak characters to me. And so, yeah, not to disrespect her family, but yeah, like AB, they never deal with the fact that he's OCD and he has some real issues. It's ignored the whole entire time in part 1 and part 2 on the fact that he needs help, and nobody ever acknowledges that. They just kind of be like, oh no, you can do it because you've been doing it for years, so what's the problem now? Like, why are you complaining now? And I'm just like, wow, that's fantastic. And the dad never, like, it's Selena and no one. Like, I don't know. Like, I just did not warm up to her family at all. I think I liked them better in part 1 than in part 2.
Yeah, like her mom, I kind of agree a little bit. Her dad was the master manipulator, and part of it, you think it comes from a necessity of him being the manager and trying to run this business and everything for that. But a lot of it carried over into his family. Like there wasn't a balance between, okay, now we're family and this is the business. He ran his family like a business, hence the family business. And it kind of goes back to something that I heard Prince Harry talk about how the royal family is a business and that's how it's ran. And I saw a lot of that carry over to that. It was very little separation between the business and the family. And they used that to control and manipulate her a lot as far as, okay, but we're family. Well, is it family or is it business? So the lines got blurred a lot. And I think that created a lot of some of the tension and some of the pressure that she was feeling. And as far as her mom goes, she was the traditional mom. She was the traditional housewife. We have to remember that this was set in the 90s, 80s, and a lot of that, and a lot of those dynamics. That's what the mother did. She basically supported her husband, and if she had opinions, she was very careful with how she shared them, and very rarely shared them publicly. Meaning in front of, even if it was in front of the family, so, and I know especially in a lot of traditional Mexican households or Latino households where you have the machismo thing going on, they're very patriarchal, where the females don't get very much say. So but yeah, and I guess is being raised by single women, strong independent women, I even, I don't understand a lot of that. Even through marriage, I view it as more of a partnership, which may explain a lot about why I'm still single, but that's neither here nor there. As far as her brother, also, we have to look at it through the lens of his issues weren't something that were addressed back then. It was just him being particular, but OCD wasn't really this thing that we talked about. Anxiety, mental health, all of those were quote unquote, even in the 90s, 30 years ago, those were looked at as like crazy people issues or just things you didn't discuss. He was just very particular, suck it up, put some dirt on it, move on, that type of thing. But now we recognize it for what it is. Yeah, he did struggle with OCD, and
I
at
wonder
some
if he ever
points,
got treated for it.
yeah, and we see that, Selena, she was getting to the point, especially as her career was taking off and the pressure was building up, she was starting to have anxiety and panic attacks and things like that. Um, we saw it when when she had to excuse herself to go to the bathroom in LA, when she had to calm herself down, when she was walking the red carpet. Some of it could be just mistaken as nerves because of big moments, but then you also saw like the anxiety when, especially when she was at the marketing meeting for the supermarket, and she saw those different Selenas, and she was like, yes. She said that would be perfect, pretty much alluding to she could clone herself, and then everyone could have a piece of her and have the Selena that they wanted. So I thought, that was pretty interesting, and just the pressure she put on herself was interesting. But yeah, her dad never really won me over. And they say in real life he was even more of a hard ass, but you have to give it to him. He did what he needed to do to get his family to where I guess he wanted them to be to achieve the success that they achieved. So, um, but yeah, I actually did like AB. I did like her brother. He was one of my favorite characters. I thought, and I liked the relationship that she had with her siblings too. They seemed very close, and but it was
They were her
just,
only friends.
yeah, and that was sad too. Besides
That was
Chris,
extremely sad.
just growing up like in the way that she did, and I guess that's why I was thinking about it earlier, and I was like, it comes to the point of where she was so sheltered that she was so trusting, and she trusted the wrong people, maybe. Does that make
Well,
sense?
yeah, because I honestly feel that what crippled her ultimately in her life was the fact that she had nobody outside of her family. And while her father thought that was a way to protect her, it wasn't a way to protect her, because by isolating her, she was not aware of the signs when she was being taken advantage of. Okay. And she just had faith in everybody, that everybody was just good and they were doing what they say they were going to do, and they were who they say they were, and there was never a question of the people around her because she was so sheltered. And that ultimately, it's the wrong word. Before I even say it, it's going to be the wrong word, but I think that's ultimately what leads to Yolanda getting the opportunity to shoot her and ultimately killing her. Was because while her father thought that was protecting her on isolating her and making it all about the family, because she had no outside friends, she had no social skills of how to really truly socialize with people that automatically didn't love you, kind of thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, she never really had to experience the highs and lows of making friends and
Yeah.
losing friends. The natural progression of people coming in and out of your life, different friends for different seasons, seeing how different people treat you, how different people are, how they change, and also, you know, she wasn't around Yolanda that much, to where it was like she only saw the parts that the crazy lady wanted her to see, you know. Um, so the few times that they were around each other, because Selena was always on the road, Yolanda made sure to put like her best foot forward, and I'm sure the stuff, because and of course we saw what they didn't see. We got to see, like, when she was hired, we saw the creepy fan room, I guess. um what do you call it? I'm just going to call it the monument to Selena, the creepy
The
fan wall.
shrine.
Yes, the shrine. That fucking creeped me out, and I'm like, and no offense to you and the other cat people, but I'm like, all it's missing are the fucking cats.
See, when they first showed it, like, I know that was supposed to be like, "Ooh, that's crazy." But then my thing is, if there was a wall in a teenager's room of just Selena, would that also be considered to be crazy?
But the point, but the point is, this woman was not a teenager. She's a grown ass woman with a job.
Yeah, sure. She was a grown ass woman. But she was also a fan. So if we take the teenager out and we talk about, a young adult who had one of their walls was dedicated to Selena. So when I first saw it, like, yes, I know I'm supposed to automatically think like, oh shoot, she's psycho, she cray cray. But then I think of when I was a teenager and I literally had a wall of NSYNC.
But here's the thing, you were a teenager. This woman at the time, she was in her 40s. So even then, she was a good 20 years older than Selena. Okay.
She was
Even
obsessive. She was obsessive, but
and that's I mean,
automatically think of her being cray cray from the jump. Like,
okay. And I get that, but they didn't. But of course, that was probably not anything that was seen until after the fact. But here's the thing: as much as we love BTS, and we do love BTS, we are fans of BTS, right? I'm not talking about going out and buying a magazine with BTS on it or something like that. I'm not talking about if when the world gets right again, if we ever go to a BTS concert and saving concert tickets. I'm not talking about memento type stuff. I'm talking about, yo, Tammy, if the first time you would have come over to my house and came into the office and you saw the office and I just had a freaking wall dedicated to BTS.
I would not have thought you were crazy. I wouldn't have. I'd have been like, whoa. I said, that's that obsession right there. But like, my whoa would have been like, I'm laughing at you at the fact that like you really, really, really love BTS. But my first thought would not have been that you're crazy. My first thought would not have been that you're mentally unstable. Like, that would not have been my first thought. My first thought would have been like, damn, you like that number one fan. Like, shit, like take some of these shit off. But in a joking way, like it wouldn't have been like, I'm going back and be like, yo, Eddie got a wall just of BTS stuff. Like, she cray cray, y'all. Like, I would not have, that would not have been my first thought if you had a wall full of BTS stuff.
And I, on the other hand, that would be my first thought. I'd be like, okay, I get that you love BTS, but my thing would have been like, it would have been like, okay, it would have set off some alarm bells for me. Like, yeah, that's a bit obsessive. Like, I would have been like, you might need to, we might need to hold an intervention. Just as a teenager, fine. As a young adult, fine. College, fine. But as a fully functioning grown ass woman, to have a whole wall dedicated to just that's a bit obsessive to me. So it would have set off some alarm bells for me. I would have been like,
see, and that's why I say, like, different responses. Because when you saw the wall in Yolanda's room, it was automatic, like, okay, so this is the first sign that she crazy. But for me, like, I did not have that thought. Like, I knew I was supposed to have that thought, so of course it popped in because that's the thought that I'm supposed to have when you see that. But honestly, I was just like, oh shit, damn girl, like, you been everywhere for Selena? like what the hell?
So,
like,
but on some level, it's there.
The reason why it was there when is because that is what they expect you to think. So I'm like, okay, so this is them showing that she's crazy, right? Like that's because that's what they were doing. Like, I didn't fall into the trap of automatically being like, oh, she crazy, but I knew what they were trying to portray of her character by showing her room and by showing like her obsession, so like with Selena, like with all the pictures and stuff like that. Like, I knew what the message they were trying to put across, so I can identify that message. But that wasn't my first thought. It wasn't my first thought. Like I knew what they wanted me to think, but I didn't first think it. So but most people did.
That's my first thought. Like, I'm just that person. Like, I guess because I'm suspicious as fuck by nature, and I go in someone's house and I get a bad vibe, I'm like, oh, like, and I understand people collect dolls and stuff like that, but those creepy Victorian dolls, I walk in somebody's house and they got a whole wall full of that, I'm like, yeah, I'm good. So that's just me, and I understand they could be perfectly fine, and like I said, they're collector's items, but as an adult, a fully functioning adult in your 40s, heading on to your 50s, you have a whole wall. And I'm not talking about, hey, this is, you know, yeah, that would send off some warning bells for me. I'd be like, yeah, that's a little abnormal. I understand you love it, you know. I'm not talking about a scrapbook. Hey, you want to see my BTS scrapbook? This is all the times I saw them in concert, or, you know, I have collector item magazines or stuff like that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about having a whole basic shrine dedicated at this age and stage in our lives. I'm like, yeah,
But
that's
then
a
wouldn't that, but then again, so then if somebody was to have at this age was to have a scrapbook just dedicated to BTS, wouldn't you also think that something was off with them?
not necessarily. It just depends on how it just depends on how it was. Like, hey, you know, just in casual conversation, if they were like, hey, I'm a big BTS fan, and I could, because I still have scrapbooks of stuff. I, you know, not just dedicated to BTS, but I keep, you know, I keep concert tickets. I keep football, big sporting events tickets. Like when we went to see Notre Dame get slaughtered at the Cotton Bowl a few years ago. Breaks my heart to bring that up. I have collections of that stuff. And as I think about it, I know, you know, I have like my love for Mickey Mouse. You know, the people out there, I love Mickey Mouse. I am obsessed as a grown ass woman with Mickey Mouse, Disney World, all of it. But and there are things that around my house that allude to my love of Mickey Mouse, but I don't just have full on rooms dedicated to Mickey Mouse, you know. So I see what you're saying, but yeah, that to me is a little triggering. That would have sent off warning bells and warning signs. And, you know, like it's just like I said, I see some stuff like that, and I may not automatically jump to, oh, you're batshit crazy, but it's going to be like, oh yeah, I need to keep my eye out on you. Something's not quite right. Like that would have, you know, because even after seeing that, you think that the crazy would be there right away just because of how obsessive she was. But then it's like, okay, we see the little signs, and I was like, damn, she must have been really good at hiding it. And I guess maybe because she was closer to her obsession, it didn't automatically come out. But you kind of see the signs of possessiveness, like when she was talking about the designer, how she just automatically hated the designer and stuff like that. And it never really said like what happened to her cousin, like if her cousin ever picked up on some things, if her cousin kept a boutique job, or how she interacted with her cousin at that boutique or anything like that. So I thought that was one that could have been also interesting, or maybe, you know, like how did no one else pick up on it? But I realized that she was at the boutique and they really weren't around her as much, you know, if that makes sense. So, but yeah, I just thought she was batshit crazy. She gave me bad vibes from the beginning. Um, and one of the things, I guess, like it kind of goes back to the feeling that she had to get all of this done. And in the show, it alludes to her feeling like she had to get all of this done before she went solo and spend as much time with her family. But I was like, subconsciously, you know, was it just this thing where she felt like she had to fit all of it into such a short amount of time? Because maybe I'm not saying she knew that she was going to die, but just on some level, that's what it seems like. She just knew something was going to happen where things were not going to be the same. So she just felt like she had to do it all now. And she had to get it all done. She had to get it all done now. So I don't know.
I don't think that at all. I just think that it was definitely a change when she was going solo without Los Dinos, and that is where she was mentally. That is the reason why. And then also she saw that everybody was kind of doing their thing on the side, and she was the only one where that was her only obsession. And she had dreams. She said that. She was like, you know, I have many dreams. Why can't I go after my dreams? And her dad saying like, well, your dream is to sing. And she's just like, that's not my only dream. I have many dreams. Okay. She'd always wanted to be in fashion. Even, you know, she's always wanted to be in fashion, always been a fashionista. So I don't think it was her feeling like she was going to die. I do think the show kind of made the betrayal, like portrayed it kind of like that. Like she knew like something was going to happen. I'm just like, no, she was making the next stage of our life. And
Yeah,
so, you know,
no, I don't think it was necessarily that she knew she was going to die. That, I mean, we know that. I think she just knew that things were going to change, and she wanted to get as much done, and get it all set up, before everything changed. And she knew she wouldn't have a chance to do it, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But when you see what happens and the way she was so determined to do all of those things, it kind of goes into, oh, like she knew something big was coming, so she wanted to get it done, I think, before she had a chance, before she wouldn't have a chance, before other things got in the way, I guess, because she knew that, hey, once the crossover album came out, that there was no going back, like that she was going to be a big star. And I wholeheartedly agree with that. That she was on the verge of her life forever changing, kind of like they say, when Gloria Estefan and Miami Sound Machine were really big, and that crossover and all of that kind of stuff. So um, I think that's what it was, but it just kind of goes into to playing into her death, being so soon, or in the midst of all of that. Um, but so what did you and I agree with AB. I know this is not going to be a popular opinion, but Dreaming of You was not my favorite song. um, I know that was the first one that they released because they didn't have the album. She didn't get a chance to finish recording her album, and so they did release the songs that she had recorded. I think it was like four of them. But yeah, I agree with AB. Dreaming of You was not my favorite song of hers.
I loved
But
it.
I,
It was the first song that I actually heard from Selena. I did not become a fan of Selena until after she died. I didn't grow up in Texas. I'm from New Jersey. Never ever heard her name, didn't know who she was until I had to literally sit the whole day and watch the news coverage of her death. And started to listen to her music because my aunt, by marriage, would play her, like started to play her CDs because she was obsessed with, like, she not obsessed, but she was like, she loved Selena, like she was such a huge fan. And so she started to play her music, and the first song I heard was the first song that really clicked in my head was Dreaming of You. And the reason why is because it was the first English song that I actually heard. I'd heard the Spanish songs, but the first English song is what made me a fan of hers, and I liked it. I think that song always gets me emotional because I think about her more when I hear that song. So, you know.
yeah,
Yeah.
I loved I Could Fall in Love. That one was my favorite. So I loved that one. So when they did it kind of like smoothed out acoustic, I was like, and I must say, I must commend Netflix on their casting. Christian Serratos did an amazing job, and I think we may have hinted on that briefly, but they did a great job of finding someone who looked like Selena, who could portray her. I don't know if she actually did the singing though, but I thought it was good. I thought it was a great job. And that purple rodeo outfit that everyone hated and pretended that they loved, that was actually one of her most iconic outfits. So,
It
I
was
just,
trash. It was ugly.
yeah, it wasn't my favorite either, but it did go on to be one of her most iconic outfits. And I never knew that she designed her own Grammy dress. That Grammy dress, I know that was also a big one. You see a lot of pictures of her in that dress. So that was pretty cool to see that too. But I did like her fashion line. And I know a few years ago, MAC released a makeup line for Selena. So, and it sold out really, really quickly. Of course, she's still popular, and her 50th birthday was just a few weeks ago. So, or what would have been her 50th birthday, was just a few weeks ago. But so what? And is it me, or did the accents become thicker this in the second part of the series?
Ooh, the further in the series they got, yes, her, especially Suzette's, the actress who
Yes.
played Suzette, like she was throwing out that twang, and I was like, girl, you did not have this twang in the first part. Like, but yeah, I definitely heard it.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, did they go a little bit heavier on the country sauce this part? So what was one of your other favorite parts of the series?
um, I will say that the part that I loved was the whole Astrodome scene. Now this was where like I started to bawl because you knew what was coming after, right? And I believe
Hmm.
this was episode 7. So you knew what was coming. And when I saw her like get on the stage, I literally just started crying. Like because I was just like, oh shit, it's getting to the end. Like you have to prepare yourself. I couldn't prepare myself. Like I was not prepared at all. Even knowing what was coming was not prepared at all. But the Astrodome and just seeing because I know like they use different clips and everything like that, but just kind of seeing how loved she um was a big thing because like I said, I had never ever heard of her um up until after her death, but seeing like she was extremely popular. So it was nice to see that. I also loved the fact that she went against her family, went against her father, and went and married Chris. um I thought that was the most independent and like amazing moment. One of the most amazing moments that she had when everybody was telling her, oh no, you'll get over it. Like, I mean, it was like so short, and she's just like, but I love him. Like, how do you, like, huh? Like, why do y'all think love is just so easy to get over and get rid of? Or that they're saying like, oh, she's too young to actually know what love is. And I'm just like, and that's the problem that we have in society. You don't tell people, even teenagers, they're too young to know what love is. You don't, because that makes them dig their heels in even more on whatever love that they have. And I think that's one thing that happened is she dug her heels in, because the more you told her that, oh, she's over him, he's not that important, like, she left him on the side of the road, so we good, family comes first. And I'm just like, yeah, you just gave her the idea to make him family.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened. Is like you get the idea that they had been sneaking around anyway. Um, Once she realized that, hey, this is the guy I want to be with, this is the guy I want to see. So you knew it was. I At least I got the sense that they once she made up her mind that okay, this is it, that they had been sneaking around. Um, and then once people start to realize, like I think who was it, Suzette or AB that realized it first. Um, that they had still been seeing each other. And then when she had that conversation, I think it was AB, because Suzette seemed like to me she would have snitched
No,
after that.
nobody realized it at first. They all
Um,
heard the news at the same time.
no,
Suzette.
not that they were married. I'm talking about that they were still seeing each other, because before they got married, you knew that they were still seeing each other.
Yeah, but
Like they
no,
had.
they didn't. They no, because remember she had the conversation with Suzette, but it was a very like abstract conversation. And when she realized that Suzette wasn't um like down for like her supporting her or whatever, she never like actually came out and told Suzette that she was still seeing Chris. So they didn't, none of them knew that she was still seeing him that whole time.
I think
She was seeing him behind her back, behind their backs.
I want to say I think Suzette suspected, although she didn't say anything, but I can't remember. But I do know that yeah, once they had that conversation, you saw the light bulb go off in her head, and I'm like, oh, so this is where they get married. And then you know, and I do applaud her too for that, because like she was like, nah, I'm coming home after my honeymoon. Like I'm gonna spend this weekend in San Antonio, and I'll be home and deal with the fallout later.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay, that was very adult, very independent, very uh, very Mrs. of you, to put your husband in your, now you have your family first. And I know you said, and one thing we both agreed on is we did not like the way her dad manipulated them into moving in next door.
Oh yes, knowing that she did not want the house. And that's another thing that kind of made me mad about her mom. Like she knew, like you're like, as the mom, I'm just like, you felt it too. Like, you knew that she was being manipulated into saying, just because you wanted her close. But then you said she's a married woman now. And I'm like, if she's a married woman, then she needs to find her own place. She needs to do her own thing with her husband. Like, you can't go back from this. And then when she kept trying to, say no about the house, and the dad like guilt tripped her, and it's like, oh, because I remember the time when we didn't know when our next meal was coming from. And I'm just like, are you seriously doing that?
Yeah, that was lowbrow. I was like, nah, he did not. And then of course it was like she was like, yeah, like reluctantly. And it wasn't the fact of her being ungrateful. It really wasn't. I mean, it was just that
She wanted
hey,
her own space.
she wanted her own space. And but and the kind of full circle after Chris let in those quote unquote her quote unquote relatives who turned out to be fans. And she
I
was
don't know
like,
how
oh
he
hell.
thought that girl, like, they were white people.
They were not. But when she oh hell no, we're moving. Like it's okay. She was just like, it'll be okay. Like I'll handle my dad. I'm putting my foot down. We're fucking getting out of here. I was like, okay. So she finally had her out. She was like, yes. And when you just see the plans that they were making, I was like, oh, that's so sad. And the one thing that got me though is every time they showed their bedroom, I was like, really have a fish tank above your bed, like as your headboard.
Oh, I never saw that.
You didn't see the fish tank that was their head.
I did not. I did not. Oh wow, I never noticed that.
I was just like, oh my gosh, the '90s. I was like, was that really a thing? And then and then kind of going back, where that was like, I was like, yeah, I guess when you see movies from the '90s, how the fish tank walls and stuff like that, that was a really big thing. And I was like, oh, but yeah, that fish tank headboard got me every time. And then I was just like, well, never mind, I won't go there.
I also will say that I felt that through the series, I like the fact that they showed like it wasn't a picture perfect marriage, but I don't know if like if she ever truly got how Chris felt. Because at the end, like, it always came back to her. Like, it was always spinned around to her, and like, I know how you're feeling because I'm going through the same thing because I don't know who I am. And I'm just like, no, 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 focus on your husband right now. We're not talking about you. We're talking about Chris. We're talking about what Chris needs. Okay, we're spinning it back again. Okay, 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 go ahead, go ahead. Like, I felt that which I guess is like an I guess it would be because the family completely surrounded around her. So without her realizing how selfish that was selfish to kind of never truly like see how Chris would feel about basically living only her dream and never truly being able to accomplish his own.
Yeah. And and it kind of comes around, it kind of goes back to her being sheltered. You think of it a little bit as only child syndrome. And I know I had to check myself about doing that, about bringing conversations back to you, because we're not used to it being about other people, especially as we get out into the world. But her, I, I saw that too. And it kind of was like, and everybody would kind of chalk it up to, oh, but that's just how she is. I'm like, okay, so not only is she the youngest, she's the baby of the family, so but she was also like, she was the family business. Everything was always about
Mm-hmm.
Selena. And so I don't think that and it comes back to not really comes back to being sheltered and always living a life where everything was about you, and it never really had to be about anybody else. So she never really learned how to, not saying that she didn't care about his dreams, but she never really learned how to balance and focus and do other things. You like the fact that she was kind of independent, like when her mom said you have to let him know where you are at all times, and she's like, but I don't check. She's like, but I don't answer to him. She's like, we're partners. But then her mom was bringing it around to, it's not about answering to him necessarily. It's just about being respectful. You know, so it was like she had to, it was like her trying to find that balance of, um, of okay, we are partners, so that means your dreams have to come in as too, because you did see how she manipulated him into going to LA and then got mad when he really didn't want to be in LA. And then she
Mm-hmm.
comes out and says, well, you didn't have to come. Well, you practically forced him to come.
Yep.
He told you from the beginning he didn't want to come.
And okay, so then that means out of all three of them, she was more like her father than anyone realized. Because the same methods that her father used to keep the family in line, she also used those methods against Chris without realizing she did it.
Yeah. And so it was just like, oh, okay. But and that doesn't make her a bad person. But yeah,
No, she was
um,
actually a really great person. Like from like, just everything, she was a really, really great person who just was not as self-aware as she would have been if she hadn't been isolated. I think it really goes back to the fact that she had no type of circle outside of her family. And because she had no circle outside of her family, certain personality traits that I think would have been curved or she would have learned from, if she had outside people, she never learned. We all have selfish, we all can be selfish at times, but we learn how to curb our selfishness with outsiders, with people
yeah,
that we didn't necessarily grow up with. And I think that because in her family she could be selfish because she was the center of the family, she never learned how to curb her selfishness. And not to say she was a bad person in that, it's just she needed friends, she needed her peoples, and she never had people.
yeah. And she also needed an assistant. And I thought, okay, maybe her mom, when her mom told her, hey, having people around you doesn't make you less independent. Getting help doesn't make you less independent. And so I was like, the messages that they sent, like, okay, you need help. Well, why didn't her dad ever get her an assistant or get her
Yeah.
someone to help her? When she wanted to start the boutique, he was like, okay, but it's all on you. So you're just going to basically throw her to the wolves and make her do this and make her feel like she has to do it on her own. But then it's like you're not going to get her any help to do it. So the one
Even though
person who,
he had help throughout the whole thing, because he pulled the whole family into helping in any way needed for the success. It wasn't, she thought that her father did it all on his own, but he didn't, because when you saw how much Suzette was doing behind the scenes, and then you saw like all the pressure that was on AB for the production, the music production side of it, like her father didn't do it all on his own, yet it was kind of like she didn't realize that she also needed people.
yeah. And so it was just like, hey, like if you had an assistant and maybe if she had help, a buffer, someone who could help and watch the business, maybe it wouldn't have been they wouldn't have been so trusting of Yolanda. And I'm not blaming her for that. I'm just saying that, hindsight's always 2020. But then again, like I said, that was probably one of those situations where you saw what she wanted you to see. And, because at the end, it's like, oh, it became very apparent that she was batshit crazy. Like
He said, "You gonna find out who I am."
thank you. I was like, whoa, bitch, slow your roll. Like this little bitch, cray, like,
And where her
um,
father, like, okay, so I will say one thing I respected about him was when they found out, and he said, "Call Yolanda to my office now." And Yolanda there, and she trying to do the same thing that she'd been doing to Selena for months. That she'd been doing it to Selena for months. And he slammed his head on the desk and said her name. I said, "Bet you better shut up."
thank you.
I said, "He ain't falling for that bullshit."
And then when he was like, I can't fire you, only Selena can do that, but I can ban you from coming back to stepping foot in this office again. um, you know, but so it was just like, okay. But yeah, by the end, it was like she was crazy. And you knew that day when she took her and found out that she had lied about being attacked, she was done.
She
It's
was.
like, bitch,
It's a wrap. It was a
she's
wrap.
like, and I was like, damn, if she didn't need her stuff, it would have been over. Like she probably would have left her in that parking lot. Um, but yeah, it was just sad. And I must say that, I got ahead, and then I think once I knew what was coming, about the fifth episode, it took me a while to get through this. It took me, I would say, about a good 2 to 3 weeks to finish it, because I just knew what was coming, and I guess subconsciously I didn't want to watch it, but I had to force myself to watch it, obviously, to the end, because we were reviewing it. But yeah, it was sad. I didn't cry, but I was just like, yeah, do I really want to? And so it did pull the heart, though. It did tug those emotional strings, and I was just like, and I want to say that she was recently up for parole but denied or something. Um, I forgot. She made the news for something lately.
Let her fucking rot.
Exactly. Just let her rot, and making all those excuses and stuff like that. So,
Um okay, so like my last thought would be, and I think you had said this, and I am so cynical. Yeah, I'm such a cynical person. So like I always like I'm never optimistic about anything. So I was just like, but at the end, when you see how her career was going, I think to myself, yeah, she would have had the whole world in the palm of her hands if she had been given the chance. Like yeah. Great, like just a great artist, and just kind of imagining like what she could have done and what she could have accomplished if she had been allowed to live rather than dying at 23 years old. So yeah, that was the sad thing on being taken so soon. And she had just like it had just started. Like granted, she was very, very popular, but becoming like worldwide popular, um that was coming. That was going to come, especially with her English album, which we talk about all the time with BTS, right? You always say this, like all BTS needs to do is just come out with an English album. um and I could definitely see like that huge crossover success when she did come out with an English album. So that was really sad.
yeah, it was sad. You just see the light snuffed out, like all the potential, like her fashion line, her clothing
Mm-hmm.
line,
Yep.
everything. She was uber talented, and she did have the world planned out. And it really makes it sad, because when she was excited about her and Chris taking the next step, in the family, and you wanted to be able to root for them and hope that they would have been able to make it through everything that was coming up, because you knew it was like, you knew it was going to be crazy. It was going to be a whirlwind, and she deserved it, because she worked her ass off from the time she was a child all the way, until she was 23. She had lived a million lifetimes, and it was just like, wow, she was just right on the cusp of it. And yeah, so yeah, it's sad. It's one of those things that still kind of like, you know. So overall, what did you think of part two of the series? Did you enjoy
um
it better than part one?
I will say it pissed me off more than part one, but yes, I did enjoy part two more than part one. Because I could get rid of the growing up and the start of her career, but seeing like everything that was planned for the future, as well as seeing when her stardom like really like just shot up, where she was only going to go up from there. I would say that for the whole series, I am going to. I was thinking about this. I kept thinking, like, how many popcorns am I going to give it? Um, I'm going to say I'm going to give it a 3.25. I really, really enjoy it. I agree with you that the acting was really, really good. I definitely enjoyed the acting. I think the casting was really good as well. For the main characters, the casting was really good for the main characters. So yeah, 3.25. I enjoyed it. Did it in one sitting where I just watched it straight through, and yeah, it was good. It was really good. What about you, Eddie?
Um, I agree. I enjoyed the full backstory. I'm gonna be honest and say I was kind of one of those who glossed over the Jennifer Lopez movie. I didn't want to see it. I understood that, she was amazing in the role. But it was just one of those things that I did not want to see. So I can't go back and say, and I've never seen it. And even after watching this, I still don't think I want to watch it. Sorry, J Lo. But I am going to say that I enjoyed the whole series all the way throughout. Just the backstory, how they went in depth, and you get a little bit more throughout a series like this than you would through the movie. It gave you a better understanding of her life. So I did like the deep dive into her early years, probably a little bit more. And they say, just a side note, that scene with Beyonce and her family really did happen. So just a side note. But overall, I will probably give the series, the casting and everything, the music. I'm still going to find out if she was actually singing or if that was dubbed over Selena. But I am going to give it a 3.75. I'm almost swayed to give it a 4, but I'm going to give it a 3.75 and say that it's really good, and I highly recommend it. Both parts 1 and 2, for anyone who wants to watch it. And I guess in total, it's about 16 episodes. But anyway, 14 to 16 episodes. So that does it, I believe, for this week's episode of the Popcorn Wind Down. You have anything else you want to add, Tammy, before we bounce out?
No, ma'am.
Okay, well, be sure, thank you as always for joining us. Be sure to check us out daily for your latest in entertainment and pop culture news at thepopcornwinddown.com. That's the plug. That's it. Pop, 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 pop. And be sure to also check us out next week when we will be discussing Vincenzo.
That's my pick, y'all.
Oh gosh, yes, that's her pick. The Korean Italian mafia mafia series. That's a mouthful, but it does look interesting. So tune in next week to find out more about Vincenzo. And until next time, I'm Eddie.
And I'm Tammy. Bye.